China taking over the world. Everything comes from China, as we know. At least a lot of things. For the most part, it's mostly cheap stuff, but their quality has improved throughout the years. Actually, it's improved so much that now their cars, that's right, their cars, they're making so many vehicles, not just that, but their quality has gone up, that they're becoming global leaders in car making. And of course, the US, along with other Western nations, but particularly the US, they really rely on a lot of productivity that comes out of China. And they manufacture just so many things, from everyday goods to minerals to medicines. It's just mind-boggling the amount of things that come out of China and come to the US. This report is all about China overtaking the global dominance, essentially, of car making itself. At least that's what Bloomberg is trying to lead us to believe. And this is a really big deal because, of course, China just dominates so many industries already. Let's look at this first chart. So China is basically on the verge of becoming the #2 global exporter of passenger vehicles. This is worldwide. Absolute dominance. Now, if you look at the chart, China's in black. That little light purple color at the bottom, kind of a flat line. This goes to show that passenger vehicles, passenger cars exported out of the United States is completely flatlined. It's actually decreased for the last 5 years. So look at China, 2020, it just catapulted, which is pretty interesting because that absolutely coincides with the whole C-19, which is really bizarre. I mean, there's all those supply chain issues that happened, and what a coincidence. They apparently didn't have supply chain issues exporting their own vehicles, so that's kind of bizarre. So they blasted right through South Korea. That red line is South Korea, and then blasting through Germany currently in second place. If you just follow the current trajectory, the path that it's on, it's going to basically surpass even Japan, which of course is the world's #1 auto exporter. Pretty crazy. I mean, these are incredible numbers. Overall shipments of vehicles manufactured in China up 3x since 2020. That's pretty nuts. Bloomberg writes that supposedly in Middle East, Latin America, Chinese brands have become market leaders. This is a very generous take on it, but it's pretty interesting. They do note, however, that Chinese-made Teslas, even Chinese-made Volvos and MGs, which I think was British originally, those are included in these charts. And of course, other Chinese names like NIO and BYD, BID, they're also on the up and coming on the global scale. Now this chart here, it shows where the cars end up. According to the UN Comtrade, China's exports go mostly to Asia and Europe, unsurprisingly, but a big chunk right there, South and Central America. Of course, down the line, this level of competition and just absolute dominance from China, if this continues, it could incite some trade protections, whether it's Europe or even here in the United States. But according to Deputy Chief Engineer at the Chinese state-backed Chinese Association of Automobile Manufacturers, they're saying that China's target is actually to sell 8 million passenger vehicles overseas, to export them by 2030, which is not that far off. And this would basically be twice the current shipment coming out of Japan, which is massive amount of exports. That would just obliterate competition, especially if they can just price them super cheap. There's even a quote from Mercedes-Benz Group AG CEO Ola Cullinus. The competitive intensity is increasing. It's the most fun time to work in automobiles since 1886. That's a strange year to talk about, but it's also the most uncertain time. Pretty strange to bring up 1886. Anyway, Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares commented last month, to fight the Chinese, we will have to have comparable cost structures, which is near impossible in the West. You can't out-cheap the Chinese. That's the thing. It's very hard to do. Alternatively, Europe will have to decide to close its borders partially to Chinese rivals. Now that's pretty interesting. Probably going to lobby the EU to close the borders to these Chinese imports. Otherwise, they just need to make better cars and obviously cheaper cars. This chart is by J.D. Power, initial quality survey for China and the US. Now, J.D. Power, you can't really trust them. Just throw them a bunch of money. They'll basically advertise whatever the hell you want. They'll say, your car is the best one out there. Oh my God, it's the best one in the world. So my guess is the Chinese brands threw a bunch of money at them. And according to the chart, that basically Chinese brands are a near match of the quality output of the US manufacturers. Not the US manufacturers, my mistake. US car market average. So the aggregate average of all the cars in the US. Interesting. But as you can see, as far back as 06, the car problems per 100 vehicles, I mean, that's a lot. That is a massive quality issue. On the plus side, parts for Chinese cars have got to be dirt cheap. I mean, so are Chinese products taking over the world? Well, definitely. Are Chinese cars going to take over the world? According to this chart, it certainly looks like it will. Anyways, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next few years if the Chinese beat Japan, because that would be mind-blowing. Of course, their quality would just have to skyrocket to compete at that level. So we'll see what happens with that. So thanks for watching, guys. Smash a like if you haven't. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Can anybody out there hear me? Hear me?